Alright, we are live, ladies and germs. Yes, this review should have come out days ago, but I just wasn't feeling up to it. But we want to I have to get this one done now because we got the F1 Grand Prix and Sonoma tomorrow that I gotta do. So let's go ahead and get this done and over with. It's the review of the Coca-Cola 600. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the Packerman, and welcome to tonight's edition of The Fuel here on Saturday, June the 5th, 2021, where today we are going to be talking about the 2021 Coca-Cola 600 that took place last Sunday on Memorial Day weekend. It is our 91st edition of The Fuel. The title of this episode, Larson finally closes the deal. Larson scored his second win of 2021, and he finally did so after leading more than 200 laps. In fact, he led like 320 of them, which is nowhere near the level of Truex's dominance, but it was still a pretty dominating performance, to say the least. And got him his second win of 2021. I believe only the 8th of his entire career, which is really surprising, to say the least. But some of the headlines that from this previous week, I'm going to hold off until the review tomorrow after Sonoma, so that way I can get this one done and over with. But before we do all that, one thing I do gotta, well, actually, you know what, I'll address that tomorrow, because there was something that really pissed me off. As far as the fan base is concerned, because I really believe that they're fucking stupid. But let's just go ahead and get through this review and get it done and over with. So, 62nd Coca-Cola 600, the only race with 4 stages, each of them 100 laps, to make up the 400 lap distance. Kurt Busch and BJ McLeod had to start at the rear due to various issues. So stage number 1, Kyle Larson starts from the pole. He leads lap 1. It was 2x2 for second between, actually side by side for second between Stenhouse and Elliott for a little bit. We had a Hendrick 1-2-3 early on in this race. Kyle Busch threads the needle between Blaney and Chastain and moves up into the top 10. Suarez up inside the top 10, 36 laps in, which was a pretty good run for him early on. Truex kicks off green flag pit stops on lap 46. Larson and Elliott pit from the lead on lap 49. Kez, of course, doing the stretch the fuel game once again. Blaney has to make a second stop for a loose wheel. That was a tough break for him. Kez finally pits on lap 57, so Larson cycles back with the race lead. Suarez with a potential issue. He was slowing on track. It was a right front tire that actually went flat. And Larson wins stage 1. Stage 1 was fucking trash. Like, out of all 4 stages, it was easily the worst one. Like, nothing whatsoever happened in stage 1. So everyone comes in for service. Larson wins the race off pit road. Get used to hearing that. So stage number 2. Larson leads the start of stage 2. Byron and Harvick start fighting hard for the 3rd position, and Kyle Busch joins the fray. Had a battle for 9th between Stenhouse, Bowman, and Reddick. That was actually pretty good. Byron gets by Harvick for the 3rd position. Elliott goes 3 wide with a lap car and Larson to take over the race lead, which I think was a pretty cool move. So we had our first pure lead change on lap 132. It took that long to get our first pure lead change. Austin Dillon gets by Kyle Busch for the 5th position. Kurt Busch goes behind the wall with a belt issue, which is actually an issue that Ross Chastain suffered as well. Both of them suffered broken belts. The serpentine belt that runs the water pump, the oil belt, water belt, power steering, the whole 9 yards. It's known as a serpentine belt. It basically runs all the various critical systems that keep an engine running, like keeping it cool and all that other stuff. So Ross Chastain was able to get his shut down early enough to where he was able to save the engine, but Kurt Busch was not so lucky. We'll get to that in a minute. Kez then does the opposite of what he did in stage 1. Instead of playing the long game, he's actually the one who kicks off green flag stops on lap 147. So kind of mixing things up a little bit. Elliott pits from the lead on lap 150. Christopher Bell was the one who played the long game on this stint, but he finally comes in on lap 153. And Larson actually managed to get out ahead of Elliott and Byron and cycles back with the race lead. Then we had our first caution on lap 173. Kurt Busch came back out after they replaced the belts. But coming off of pit road, the motor went kerblooey. And that was the end of Kurt Busch's day. Just cannot catch a break. And there is some news on him that we will talk about tomorrow night. Everyone comes in for service. Alex Bowman wins the race off pit road this time, but only 2 tires for him. So he leads on the restart. Hamlin gets underneath the Bowman for the lead for a second pure lead change in lap 182. This is when the lead started swapping around a little bit. This is when things got kind of interesting in the end of the second stage. So Hamlin took over the lead. Elliott gets underneath the Hamlin to challenge for the race lead and eventually takes it on lap 182 for our 3rd pure lead change of the day. Larson gets by Hamlin for 2nd. Then we have a battle for 3rd between Bowman, Hamlin, and Kyle Busch. Larson gets by Elliott for the race lead in turn 3 for our 4th pure lead change on lap 188. So we have a Hendrick 1, 2, 3, 4 near the halfway point of this race. Sound familiar? Hendrick is just firing on all cylinders right now. Kyle Busch and Reddick up to 4th and 5th, and Larson wins stage number 2. Second stage was definitely better than the first. Then at the halfway point, they brought everybody in to do the memorial presentation, which is something that they've been doing for the last couple years now. Everyone comes in for service. Larson wins the race off pit road. So we get to stage number 3. Larson leads the start of stage 3. Harvick and Elliott battling for the 3rd position. Bell smacks the wall down the back stretch, and that eventually leads to a right front tire going down, and he has to pit to get that replaced. Kyle Busch gets by Harvick for the 4th position. Larson, Byron, and Elliott all within half a second of each other for the race lead. Byron challenges Larson for the lead this time and takes it on lap 231 for a 5th pure lead change of the day. Harvick pits with a loose wheel on lap 238, although for him it was close enough to the pit stop window that he was able to recover from it. Not as much as I think he would have liked, though. Newman kicks off actual green flag pit stops on lap 244. Byron pits from the lead on lap 249, but Larson once again manages to get ahead of everybody else on the pit stops. So the 5 team really getting the job done so far. Anthony Alfredo is the last of the leaders to pit road, so Larson cycles back with the race lead. James Davison nearly gets punted by Quinn Houff, but somehow hangs on. Back markers, there were some back markers that were just a real hindrance in this race, like the 66 car. I mean, they had to have lapped them like 20 times, and it's like, why the fuck are cars like that on the racetrack? They're just nothing but moving chicanes. It's ridiculous. Reddick blows by Hamlin for the 6th position after Hamlin gets held up by lap traffic. Byron starts closing back in on Larson for the lead with 8 laps to go in stage 3, but Then we have our second and final caution on lap 296 when Ryan Newman loses the right front tire in turn 3 and slams the wall. Didn't look like there was any contact prior to that. It's just the tire just deflated, which makes me wonder if he ran over a piece of debris or something like that. So Larson wins stage number 3 under caution. Everyone comes in for service, and Larson wins the race off pit road. So the rest of this race went without the caution flag. So stage number 4, Blaney got caught speeding on pit road, and Bubba Wallace was penalized for equipment interference. One of their tires basically went into another's pit box, the one next to theirs, and interfered with pit crew members in that pit box. So that's why the interference was called. And you can clearly see it too. So it was a pretty easy call. So Larson leads the start of stage 4. Dead even at the line between the Kyles. It was the Kyle and Kyle show once again. Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson. Kyle Busch actually led the lap after the restart. So Byron and Elliott battle it out for the second position as Elliott nearly spins Larson in turn 1. But Larson manages to get back in front of Kyle Busch for a 6th and final pure lead change on lap 3:07. Elliott starts closing back in on Larson for the race lead. Logano with an unscheduled stop for a flat tire, which the broadcast didn't really seem to pick up until way after the fact. That is something I will be talking about tomorrow night as well. Probably going to be a pretty jam-packed edition of the Fuel tomorrow night as far as the NASCAR review is concerned. Kyle Busch gets by William Byron for the 3rd position. He was basically the only one that was breaking up the Hendrick juggernaut at the front right now. Truex blows a left front tire and blows up the cow flap, so they had to get that repaired. No caution though. Kyle Busch up to 2nd and Byron to 3rd as they get by Chase Elliott. Byron was the first of the leaders to make the final green flag pit stop on lap 346. Larson pits from lead with 53 laps to go, so lap 347. Kyle Busch, Byron, and Elliott start battling hard amongst the lap cars. Larson cycles back with the race lead with 48 laps to go, and that is the last we see of him. He would eventually stretch it out to a 10-second advantage over everybody else. However, the battle for second at the end of this race was awesome. It was basically between Busch, Byron, and Elliott, and they were just going back and forth for the rest of this race pretty much. Reddick gets really loose off of turn 4 but manages to hang on. The three-way fight for second between Elliott, Byron, and Busch inside of 10 laps to go was fantastic. That was some fantastic racing between all three of those guys. If only it was for the lead, then it would have elevated it quite a bit more. But it was still a fantastic battle, and Alex Bowman was closing in on all of them to make it a 4-way dance for the runner-up spot. But Kyle Larson takes the Coca-Cola 600, and he helps Hendrick Motorsports set the all-time record for team wins, surpassing Petty Enterprises at 269 wins. The crazy thing is, Petty Enterprises held that all-time record for 61 years. That just goes to show you how dominant Petty Enterprises was back in their day, to hold the record for that long. And that's pretty much it. That is the Coca-Cola 600. As far as my thoughts on the race, I mean, as far as 600s go, it wasn't that bad. I mean, stage 1 was fucking awful, but the rest of it was not terrible. I mean, it could have been better, for sure, especially since we saw yet another dominant performance. I mean, we saw Kyle Busch do it, and then, of course, there was the 2016 mud hole stomping that Truex laid on the field. I don't think that will ever be topped. But, I mean, for what it was, this wasn't a terrible race. It wasn't good either. But as far as 600s go, it was okay. Which is more than I can say for some 600s, I'll tell you that much. Some 600s were a fucking slog to go through. Alright, so let's get some stat lines. There were 23 overall lead changes in this race. Pretty good. 6 pure lead changes and only 2 caution flags. So for a 600-mile race, this race actually flew by relatively quickly. I mean, I think they got it in under 4 hours because there were so few caution flags. This race usually lasts somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5 to 5 or maybe even 6 hours, which is a long race. But only 2 caution flags the entire race, 2 legitimate caution flags, and you know, that's pretty much it. So, race results for the Coca-Cola 600. Kyle Larson with the win, led 327 of the race's 400 laps, won all the stages, so he got the perfect 70 in this case. Chase Elliott comes home in second. Kyle Busch breaking up the armada of Hendrick cars. Of course, led that 1 lap. William Byron in 4th. Alex Bowman in 5th. Rest of the top 10, Austin Dillon. He had a good car. He had a very quiet run, but still a good run nonetheless. He comes home in 6th. Denny Hamlin in 7th. Chris Buescher with a top 10 run in 8th. Then you have Tyler Reddick in 9th, and then Kevin Harvick, recovering from that loose wheel, rounds out the top 10. Point standings. 15 races in, 11 to go until we're into playoff territory. Denny Hamlin still has not won a race this season, but continues to lead the point standings, although that has shrunk a little bit. He has now got a 76-point lead over both Kyle Larson and William Byron. Of course, Larson is officially second because he has 2 wins to William Byron's 1 win. Then you have Chase Elliott and Joey Logano rounding out the top 5. Then you have Martin Truex, who has won the most races so far this year at 3, but he's been pretty inconsistent this year. He's had good runs, but then sometimes he's just nowhere near the front. Then you have Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, who also has not won yet this year, but has 11 top 10 finishes, and Brad Keselowski rounding out the top 10. Rest of the playoff field at the moment is Austin Dillon, Alex Bowman, Tyler Reddick, Chris Buescher, Christopher Bell, and Michael McDowell. And then the rest of the top 20 is Matt DiBenedetto, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kurt Busch, and Ryan Newman. As for my final rating for the Coca-Cola 600, you know, like I said, it was a middle-of-the-road race. It wasn't good, wasn't terrible. So I'll give it a 5 on the fuel gauge. So a 5 out of 10. It was okay-ish. The first stage was awful, and this race definitely had its low points, but there was also some good racing kind of interspersed among it as well. And despite Larson's dominance, we still saw a decent number of lead changes and a decent amount of pure lead changes. Excuse me. Especially compared to fucking Dover. And that's something I'm going to be talking about tomorrow night as well. But that... Damn. But that's also going to be something I'm going to be talking about tomorrow night as well. So I have a random coughing fit. Whew. But that's going to do it for this edition of The Fuel, an edition that should have come out days ago, but, you know, I just wasn't really feeling up to it. But we got it done, so we can move past it and look forward to tomorrow's double whammy with Formula One's Azerbaijan Grand Prix with Charles Leclerc on the pole again. Ferrari's starting to look better and better again, unlike the last couple years. And then, of course, we got Sonoma tomorrow as well. First time that NASCAR is returning to Sonoma and California in general since the end of the 2019 season. So there you go. But thank you very much for watching. And until next time, this is the Packerman signing out. See you later.
Thank you for watching tonight's video. Be sure to like and subscribe, you rats!